You're hitting your MQL targets every single month, but for some reason it's not leading to revenue. On this video, I'm going to go over a hidden killer for MQL targets that lead to revenue. You might be missing out on this one detail that's costing you closed-won deals and an effective marketing strategy. Let's jump in. Hey there, I'm Dan Saavedra from Merger Data, and we are on day 38 of 90 of the 90-day YouTube sprint on signal analytics. And today, we're talking about a hidden killer for MQL targets that lead to revenue. If you're improperly counting your CRM contacts as MQLs, they're not going to reliably turn into revenue for you. You're going to be hitting targets that were set at the beginning of the quarter or at the beginning of the year, and you're just not going to reach the ultimate goal, which is getting more clients and making more money. And so, let me go into presentation mode here. Let me talk a little bit about how this surfaced, because maybe you're going through the exact same situation. So there was this new client that we started working with, and when we quickly set up our first set of dashboards and data configuration that's needed in order to dive deeper into the financials and start understanding the signals that prospects give, we were asking questions about how they count MQLs. And basically what they said is that we just count anyone who fits this criteria. And when we looked at the criteria that they were talking about, what we determined was that they actually were counting people who were coming in from channels that indicated that they weren't an active prospects. They were coming in through support. They were coming in because people just had random conversations with vendors and they were logging it to their CRM. And so there were situations like this that were inflating their MQL count and ultimately was showing really poor conversions to actual closed-won customers. They were having these MQL targets, but they weren't connecting it to the end revenue that they were achieving through their pipeline. And so they ended up getting all these MQLs and they didn't turn into anything. They were setting the wrong targets, and that's a problem. And so this brought up this video. And so what you might be doing is counting all new contacts as part of MQLs, like this client was. And it's okay. It's a problem that pops up. You didn't know you were doing it, and now we just handle it because we discovered what we were doing incorrectly. But it happens, right? You set up these counts, you think you understand your data, you set up certain criteria, certain automations that move people to the MQL customer or the MQL lifecycle stage. But in reality, they should have never been marked MQLs. They shouldn't even have been in your CRM in the first place. And so you might be doing that at the current moment. 2, you might be basing your projections and goals off of this. And so if there's no QA around what is becoming MQLs, then you're going to be basing your quarters and your years off of these MQL targets that don't tie back to revenue. And so then they're meaningless. And so when people are talking about this problem of MQLs and MQL goals not meaning anything, it's because they are saying that you need cross-reference data points with those MQLs to make sure that they're actually qualified. They're just not qualifying correctly, right? MQLs should tie directly into a specific amount of revenue and closed-won deals. If it's not, you are measuring things incorrectly. Signals solves this problem, since this series is about signals. Signals solve this problem because it's cross-referencing different data points together to make sure that they're accurate. We're not just looking at lifecycle stage conversions. We're cross-referencing that with attribution, with unit economics, the financials, and then we're also cross-referencing that with dimensional data points like firmographic and demographic information. And so when you cross-reference all of this stuff, behaviors, movement, demographics, you're going to get more accurate projections and be able to actually use certain categories and classifications of data more effectively. And one of those is the MQL. It's the same for SQLs, opportunities, customers, evangelists, whatever lifecycle stages you're using for a contact or for a lead, you'll be able to use them more effectively. 3, the CEO or CFO is wondering why these don't lead to more revenue. So this is tied to the first 2. If you're setting MQL goals, they should be leading to a certain amount of revenue. We talked about it. I mentioned it. It's a valid question. Why are we setting these targets, or why are these measurements not leading to results? Why are we measuring it if it's not leading to a result? If your MQLs are a meaningless metric. It's because you are measuring it wrong, not because having a goal of MQLs is useless. So this might be you right now, realizing that this is no good, not a good situation, but it's okay because you have the data and we're going to solve it. So let's go to the next slide. So signals uncover this problem anyway. And what I'm saying by that is when you are constructing signals and doing signal analytics, because you are cross-referencing attribution, unit economics, dimensional data, and conversion optimization, it's going to show up here when you're trying to construct your signals, because you're going to think that you have a signal, but then you're going to see that MQLs mean literally nothing. You're having terrible conversion in terms of your MQLs to the next stage of SQLs and ultimately to customers. And so you're going to have a big flag here, and you're going to think that actually this might be a neutral or a negative signal when they become an MQL because it doesn't lead to anything. And so you're going to uncover the fact that your MQLs are measured incorrectly, and you're going to focus on solving that problem. And so by using the signal approach, by combining the data points of attribution, unit economics, dimensional data, conversion optimization, you're going to get a real signal. And so you can use behavior, you can use collected data from the first party, you can use third-party tools that add data. It doesn't matter what you're combining, but the reality of signals is that it tells you the financials, it tells you what conversion rates you should be achieving or what you are not achieving. And then it also combines other data points so that you can get an accurate indicator of whether or not someone is going to become a customer at some point. And so signals uncovers this problem anyways. And so why is that? It's because signals deprioritize prospects who won't convert naturally. So even if someone is being categorized as a MQL, you're going to have the other cross-reference data points that say this specific cohort of people who reached MQLs are never going to convert. And you're going to ignore them. So even if you're counting your MQLs wrong and should fix that, signals will ignore it, and you're not going to be facing that problem because your top signals will show that people coming from the customer support channels and from being added from the CRM from certain people are not a strong indicator that they're going to convert to the next stage. And so signals actually mitigates this problem without you having to solve it. You still should solve it, just so you're operating from a consistent and accurate point of definitions of your life cycle stages, but it won't cause problems if you're using signals. If you're using attribution, it's going to be a problem. It's why attribution is only one component of a signal. So how to handle: use signals or filter your context out of your MQL calculations when they aren't truly leads. So for our client, they wanted to do this, so that's what they did. It's not the recommended approach. The recommended approach is just to use signals, which they still will do, but they're just fixing the root problem, which is not a problem. But they're going to filter out their contacts of their MQL calculations that aren't truly leads. So instead of going back and fixing it, they're just going to filter out their reports. It is what it is because, like what I said, signals will have you work around it anyways. And so this is one of the same examples that we've gone over in previous videos. They're winning more with the same or less opportunities. Since we've deployed signal analytics, since we've looked at things like MQL counts and thinking that we're hitting MQL counts, but we're actually not because they're not converting, since fixing that problem with signal analytics, you can see that they had more won deals after we deployed. It doubled, right? And then it kept increasing without deals exploding. They're just converting way more. They're a low ticket, right? So that's why they have such a high conversion rate, but it's so dialed in now that they're not wasting a bunch of money on MQLs that don't work because they weren't MQLs in the first place. And so with signals and with fixing that MQL definition, you will be able to achieve a much higher conversion rate from MQL to customer because you're not going to be wasting money on people who aren't qualified in the first place. You're not going to be wasting sales time trying to convert these people when they weren't even real opportunities. They weren't really qualified leads, right? So that's what you can get with signal analytics. We like to show real results. We'll be coming out with more screenshots too from more clients as we get the permission to share those. Take one action, share in a company chat. That's what I asked you to do for this one. So if you think you might have an MQL problem, you're having a bunch of MQLs come through and they're not converting to customers at a high rate, Share this with your team. See if maybe you're counting these incorrectly. They're coming from the wrong sources. See if Signals will allow you to work around this and if you're open to that. If not, go back and fix how you're counting MQLs in the first place so that they're leading to real conversions later on in the pipeline. Next video will be a surprise. Subscribe on YouTube or via the link in the description. If you subscribe via the link in the description, you will get the link to our Signal Constructor tool, which will tell you exactly what drop-down options to pick to construct your signals, the criteria that needs to be met for those data points, and then the action that your team takes. Signals is ultimately about action. Signal analytics is about action. And so this tool will help your team plan that out. I'm Dan Saavedra from Merge Your Data. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.